And hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in on Friday, June 21st, 2024 at 10:04 p.m. on 92.5 WLSD, The Vault, 12:20 a.m. and WLSDradio.com. You're tuning into Real Talk. And tonight, we're going to dive in. We're going to go back in time a little bit. 26 years. Hard to believe. We're going to be diving in to urban legend. But before we dive into the movie, please check out all the social media pages. That is the Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, The Other People's Show. Views and subscriptions are up, so that is greatly appreciated. Please continue to spread the word. And on with the program. So tonight's plot focuses on a series of murders on a campus of a private New England University, all of which appear to be modeled and molded after popular urban legends. So this is I'm sure you've heard of this premise many times throughout your life, because there's so many urban legends out there that this movie, I was really surprised going back, and even looking back from when I was younger, that I don't remember any particular movie that's diving into urban legends just coming out and calling it urban legends. Like, you've got the ghost jogger, you've got the licked hand. That one's about how a killer secretly spends the night under a girl's bed, licking her hand when offered. When the girl thinks it's her dog, the girl only finds the truth the following day when she finds her dog dead in her closet, and a bloody message that says humans can lick too. The Arizona Skinwalkers, The Call That's Coming from Inside the House, which was made into When a Stranger Calls, which is a remake, I think, of a movie of the same name from the 70s, possibly early 80s. Which I know the remake gets a bad rap. I think it's a Simon West movie, and if you know his stuff, he does kind of more of like action movies. But I don't think it's a bad entry into the subgenre, and it's more of a thriller than a right-out horror movie. And Camilla Bell does a fantastic job. I remember going into the movie theater. I would go every Friday. I worked at the movie theater. I worked at the radio station. Side note, asterisk. And I worked overnight. And then I would wake up on Fridays earlier, about noon, so I would be able to sleep a little bit on the weekend and not be up all night on the weekend. So I would go to a matinee, sometimes 2 matinees in a row, and I saw this in a very empty. And that was a cool thing about going in the early matinees, especially to like a horror movie. I'd rather see those in an empty theater than in a packed house. Because in a packed house, you've got the murmur of the crowd, you've got the chewing of the popcorn and things like that. But when you're watching the movie alone, or just one or two people, it's very atmospheric and very creepy. And if you're watching a horror movie, it kind of just feeds into that. So I always really did enjoy when I would go to these films, these movies, and there would be not many people there at all. But there's so many of these. The Night Marchers, we've got Bloody Mary, everyone knows that one. The Little Girl on the Knock Knock Road, That one's a young girl is murdered on Knock Knock Road in Detroit. Now appears to drivers at their car windows and taps on the glass, trying to find her killer. I hadn't actually heard that one, but so there's very many urban legends that aren't just for national. There's a lot of regional ones for every region and probably town in America, probably the world, to be honest. Maybe not in desert. I don't know. Maybe there's urban legends there, desert legends. But this plot does focus on a group of individuals, of college students, that are seemingly being murdered in the style of certain urban legends of the time. So you have to go back and rewind to 1998, and as we've discussed in the past, Scream had revitalized the horror genre in 1996, and then I Know What You Did Last Summer, it came out in 1997. So there were quite a few movies along this timeline that were trying to capitalize on the success of this reimagined horror movies. And Urban Legend fell right into that category. And it also fell into the category that I saw it in Kingsport. I can't recall what it was called, what the theater, but it was two screens. And I know there was like one that was where the hospital parking lot is now, that's torn down. But this one is where there's some stores there now. But there used to be maybe a Hills in there, and it was like a miniature mall. And they had two theaters in there. And I happened to go in there in fall. I think it was October of 1998. And I saw this movie. And if I'm not mistaken, and memory typically isn't wrong with me, on occasion, but not often, I think I was the only person in the theater. I watched it on a Sunday afternoon in October. I would often drive to Kingsport to see movies that we didn't get around here at the time. And we didn't get Sony movies or TriStar movies during the 1998 through probably 2004. Well, actually, probably a little later than that. If you go back and you're listening in the region, if you go back by memory, Spider-Man, the original incarnation with Tobey Maguire, never played originally around the Wise, Norton, Coburn area. Neither did 2 or 3. It wasn't until later when The Amazing Spider-Man at the newer theater that things began to change. I digress. I did see this away from here because we didn't get Sony movies. I went by myself. I think I've referenced this a couple of times. I mistakenly, and a lot of the knowledge I have of movies was all a mistake. I guess it was supposed to happen, but it was by mistake because I received somehow Entertainment Weekly in the mail. And the first issue was Kevin Costner on the cover, spitting out water toward the audience, toward the reader. He was on promotion for Waterworld. So it was a June 1995. The movie came out in July. So I read a lot about these movies when they would come out in the fall, in the spring. And maybe that's why I identify a lot of the certain seasons with certain films. And my love and study and admiration and me being a director and things of this nature. So I did read about Urban Legend. And I knew that it was coming out. So I looked in the newspaper, and I think maybe even looked online at the time, although it was slow, if you remember that. And went to see Urban Legend. And what I thought then is basically the same thing as what I think about it now. Because when I went and I saw it in the theater then once, I purchased it on VHS, and I think watched it once, maybe twice, and then once on DVD, and then I watched it again today. And today. an urban legend to me. Took me back a little bit because, like Michael Rosenbaum, you may not know the name, but he was like Lex Luthor in Smallville. He also does a podcast, Inside of You, with Michael Rosenbaum. He was in Sorority Girls with Harlan Williams, who's a very odd guy. And then you've got, well, this is some of the cast, so we'll just jump right in. Before the cast, we'll get into Jamie Blanks. Now, I was doing some research, and I didn't realize this at the time. Jamie Blanks had only produced and directed and written one short film. He was able to present it to the filmmakers and was able to secure a $14 million budget, which is unheard of. He's only had one feature film since then. Well, two, but only one of note, called Valentine, which, I got to be honest with you, there's been several fans out there and audience members that have requested Valentine, and I've neglected to do that, so that might be something to do maybe this October. I might do Valentine, another Jamie Blanks movie. But this movie had a good cast. It had Jared Leto, it had Alicia Witt, Rebecca Gayheart, Joshua Jackson, Natasha Gregson Wagner, Tara Reid, Michael Rosenbaum, Danielle Harris, and Robert Englund. So a lot of the names you may be thinking, okay, Jared Leto, I'm sure everyone knows him, but at this point, it wasn't the Jared Leto that you know of Jared Leto now. He was mainly known for My So-Called Life. Not soul, but My So-Called Life. And I'd even heard and read stories that he was even now, I don't know how he would be, especially in this film, but I'd seen interviews and read some things that stated that he was actually a character actor even back then, even for a movie like this. You've got Alicia Witt, Rebecca Gayheart. Now, if you know her, she was the Rebecca Gayheart was the was it, I think, Noxzema girl, and she was on TV all the time, washing her face, holding up the bottle of Noxzema, face wash, whatever it may be. And so she was prominent all the time. But to be honest with you, until I saw this movie in the theater, I had no idea that she was even an actor. And my mind at the time, originally seeing this, didn't categorize people on TV doing commercials as, quote, actors. Although they're acting in a commercial. In my mind, there were, television actors and movie actors, and then there were commercial actors. So I guess they were categorized in my mind, and they are to this extent, to this day, to be honest. And I stuttered quite a bit just then too. I apologize. So she was kind of known for that. Joshua Jackson was probably one of the most immediate, bigger stars at the time. He had Dawson's Creek. He had a role in Cruel Intentions, which is why his hair was still blonde. It was blonde in this film. And the reason it was blonde, in case they needed reshoots for Cruel Intentions, and he had to go back and do that. And then he was in The Skulls. So he had several movies around this time, and the TV show Dawson's Creek. I think I mentioned that. And there's a nice little joke in there at his expense during his death scene that kind of references Dawson's Creek. You've got Natasha Gregson Wagner, and she's never really developed. She's the daughter of Natalie Wood, and So she's never really had to, go out of her way to be a great or a force in the acting community. But she does a great job here. Spoiler alert from here on out. She dies in the first, little bit of the movie. But at the time, she was kind of making a name, showing up in one episodes here and there. I'd seen her in the Robert Downey Jr. Heather Graham movie, Two Girls and a Guy. That's when I kind of first knew her from the movie or from the magazine Entertainment Weekly, an article in the magazine. And so she was the name that you thought, maybe she might survive because she was a face that you might have recognized. You've got Tara Reid. And really the only thing Tara Reid had been in up until this point that had made any kind of waves, she was Bunny in The Big Lebowski. But you have to think, The Big Lebowski, theatrically at the time, didn't make any money. It barely recouped the $15 million that it was made on. And theatrically, as you know, as I've stated, studios typically only get 50 to 60% of the final theatrical gross of a movie theater. The rest is split in the theaters. And, you have to pay the actors back end and all this kind of things. So that, that kind of happened during that whole scene. So let's see, we got Michael Rosenbaum, and I think this was one of his first features, so he's not really well known or established. Danielle Harris, she has kind of a bit part, kind of a throwback to, Halloween and that. And then you've got the master who plays Freddy himself. Robert Englund plays Professor William Wexler. And a more, originally you would think he's got the "and" credit, but you would think a lot of times those aren't big parts. And not that his part is huge, but he's probably got 15 minutes of screen time, I would say. I mean, maybe not that. I mean, he's got probably at least six to 8 scenes in the movie, I would imagine. I really would. So let's get to the facts. All killers have an outfit. Freddy has the glove. Jason has the hockey mask. In Scream, they have the ghost face killer. So in this film, the killer's outfit is based on the fact that originally it was planned to be set in the middle of winter. But when the weather was too warm, it was decided to drop the winter aspect of the storyline. However, rather than fake the snow in all the outdoor scenes and dress everybody, the extras, in winter clothing, they changed it all. Except they kept the killer's costume a parka. And I always wondered when watching this, why? Why did they choose to do this? Because they couldn't find another suitable outfit. And I will say that where I'm filming, shooting now, when I say shooting, I mean filming. Filming, I mean shooting, having the camera record these actions. As we're recording and shooting and filming the short film, Echoes in the Dark, it's the same kind of thing. As far as the scenes and such. And I lost my... Well, I didn't lose what I was saying. I was saying is, it's very difficult to come up with a suitable outfit for a killer in these kind of films. Because a lot of the good things that's been taken. I mean, you've got Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You've got Pinhead, Leatherface, Pinhead, Jason, Freddy, Ghostface. Jigsaw with his mini traps, the little thing on the tricycle. So everything has something. And I think that was one of the only bad things about the killer was that costume. Another fact is that Danielle Harris was a smoker at the time and was thrilled to be allowed to smoke while working. She quickly realized that shooting scenes while smoking meant that she was going to have to smoke cigarettes for hours all day while they shot. She eventually got sick and quit smoking. So that's kudos to Danielle Harris. I've got friends, people in my life, people that I know that smoke that cigarette, smoke that nasty cigarette. Put that cigarette down. If you're listening right now, put it down. Put that cigarette down. Or we're going to come film a movie with you. We're just going to have to chain smoke all day long. And then you'll eventually get sick and quit. Just like Danielle Harris. Who my friend Thomas, I know two Thomases, but one of my friends named Thomas met Danielle Harris a couple months back. Said she was pretty nice. Sarah Michelle Gellar accepted the role of Sasha, but had to back out due to her scheduling conflicts with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But as you all know, she was in I Know What You Did Last Summer, and she was also in Cruel Intentions. She was also in Scream 2. And I'm trying to think if she's in I Know What You... I think she just referenced in part 2 because she dies in the first I Know What You Did Last Summer. So she had this little late 90s, like 97 to 2000 run. Really 97 to about 2003. Because then she had a couple films, Sarah Michelle, by the way. Scooby-Doo films kind of dropped off. But, yeah, so she couldn't do this. And Danielle Harris and Tara Reid had been roommates in real life before they shot the film. So they kind of knew each other. But I don't really think they had any... No, they don't. They don't have any scenes together in the film. So, and I'd forgot about this as well until I'd done some research and rewatched. But this film co-stars two of Hollywood's most iconic horror movie slashers. Brad Dourif, who is Chucky in the Child's Play films, and Robert Englund, who is Freddy in the Nightmare on Elm Street films. So both of them have a role in this movie. And I'd completely forgot about that now. I remembered upon rewatch. But when I went back and watched it for the first time after a decade, I'd forgot that's kind of how it opens. Spoiler alert. He's in the scene with Natasha Gregson Wagner's character, Michelle, at the very beginning of the film, which opens it up. And trivia question. How much was a gallon of gas when Michelle pulls into the gas station at the beginning of Urban Legend? How much was a gallon of gas? I'll give you something nice if you know. You can message me on Facebook, on our social media if you want to do that. Let's see, the budget, like I said earlier, was $14 million. The gross $38.1 in America and $72.5 million worldwide. So it about doubled worldwide. Although the critics and audience members didn't really seem to like this movie that much. Rotten Tomatoes at 27% and audience score 37%. IMDb almost split right down the middle at 5.6. So let's get a little bit into the plot and the story. So the plot and the story, as I said, you've got this group of, after the opening scene, which takes place at a gas station, that's all I'll say, it kind of sets the stakes. Kind of has the first urban legend, someone hiding in the back of the vehicle. And, for the longest time growing up, even to this day, I look in the back of the vehicle and I kind of search around in the back of the vehicle. I don't search around. I mean, I'm not getting down there on hands and knees looking in the back, but I do look. And I don't even know what I would do if I found someone back there. I don't know. And I've often pondered about that sometimes. But, it's kind of opened up with that kind of scene. And then it goes to this college in New England. And, the college is the students are informed that, one of the college students has been killed, murdered. Michelle, she went there. She knew the girls. She knew this kind of a little group that you follow along. And these, I don't want to say gruesome, but there's somewhat gruesome kills happen in the movie. So, it's called Urban Legend, so you're going to be expecting kills, right? Yes. Yes, you are. So that's basically what's happening. Here you've got, some good characters, but there's not really that standout character. No one does a bad job. You got Jared Leto as Paul, Alicia Witt as Natalie, Rebecca Gayheart as Brenda, Joshua Jackson as Damon, Natasha Gregson Wagner as Michelle, Tara Reid as Sasha, Michael Rosenbaum as Parker, Danielle as Tosh, and Robert Englund as Professor William Wexler. There's another character I left out, not on purpose, but she's kind of the security guard, and she's a good portion. She's probably got about 20 minutes of screen time, and she's a good factor in the ending of the movie. Well, kind of throughout as well. It makes an appearance in the sequel, the middle sequel, Urban Legend, Final Cut. So, no one does a bad job. I mean, typically I think in horror movies, especially the modern era that I would say the last 25, 30 years, most, especially mainstream, Hollywood released, are pretty decently acted. And they're a launching pad for a lot of careers. Or, a lot of the horror staples kind of show up, like, Robert Englund or Danielle Harris. And then you've got, upstarts like Jared Leto, and we've seen the path he's taken. Alicia Witt, I think she's been in several things. Now, Rebecca Gayheart, I've not really seen her in anything else. Tara Reid, we've seen her go in American Pie direction and then kind of implode with Paradise. Michael Rosenbaum, check out his Inside of You podcast. And Danielle Harris. She's been around for a while, and I think she still is, she did the Rob Zombies Halloween movies. She did this. She did the Halloween when she was younger. She did Sorority Row. So, she's in this. She goes to the cons. So this is her life. So everyone does a fine job. No problems there. Favorite scene, least favorite scene, I don't know if I have what I would say a favorite urban legend or a favorite scene in the movie. I mean, you've got the killer in the back seat. You've got the kidney heist. You've got the boyfriend's death. That's the one where there's a scene. Well, this might be a good scene. Or that's not my favorite scene. I know my favorite scene. But this particular scene, the boyfriend death, I'm going over the urban legend movies and scenes in the movie, is where Damon is trying to, quote, comfort Natalie. He's kind of a prankster in the movie, fondling the death of Michelle, bringing her out to a remote place, talking to her in the car, saying he has to step out to go pee. A figure in a hooded parka attacks him and hangs him from a tree. The same rope tied to Damon is also tied to the car, and he is hanging right above the car. So a frightened Natalie hears his feet hitting the car roof. thinking it's the killer climbing on the car. She hits the gas and inadvertently ends Damon's life even faster than how quickly she speeds away. So that's pretty much the urban legend that, a guy and a girl go to Lover's Lane. They park a car under a tree. When they try to leave, the guy realizes the car is out of gas, leaves to find help, and tells his girlfriend to stay inside until he gets back, no matter what. Most stories say that she's hiding in the car overnight because she's getting freaked out when she hears scratching and tapping on the roof of the car. In the morning, the police arrive and tell her to get out of the car, but to not look back. At the last minute, she looks back and sees her boyfriend hung from a tree. It was either his scratching for help or his lifeless feet tapping on the car. Some versions said the boyfriend's been decapitated. So that's kind of the legend in that. High beams initiating like gang violence, the Bloody Mary, there's the real scream and the love roller coaster. So a creepy guy at a party. This is a good scene, and I'd forgotten about this. A creepy guy at a party runs up to Sasha, and she's a radio host of the college radio show. So radio station. He runs up and tells Sasha a fun fact that the scream in Love Roller Coaster was a real woman screaming as she's being murdered. Later, the killer attacks Sasha in the studio. So in a way, I guess you could say she reenacts the legend because her screams were broadcast all over the radio. So I don't want to scream. That's kind of freaking me out, in a way. It really is, to be honest. Let's see what else we have here. We have, aren't you glad you didn't turn out the light? So Natalie is kind of used to her roommate, kind of a goth roommate, which is Tosh, being played by Danielle Harris, having loud encounters of the intimate kind in their shared bedroom. So quite often Tosh is like, keep the light off, keep the light off. Natalie comes in, hears noises, this time doesn't cut the light off, or on, hears, screams and, sounds that she would often think that she would hear. And in the morning, as she wakes up, she looks over and she sees on the wall, written in blood, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?" She looks down, slowly reaches for the covers, yanks them back, and it's her roommate, stabbed to death. We've got the Pop, Rocks, and Soda. Now, this is probably what I would say my favorite scene in the movie. As Professor Wexler, played by Robert Englund, Freddy himself, asked Brenda, Rebecca Gayheart, the Noxzema girl, to eat the Pop Rocks and drink the soda at the same time. She refuses. She's citing a rumor that she's heard stating that little Mikey from the Life cereal had died. Damon, who's played by Joshua Jackson, volunteers to do it, falls to the ground, foam coming out of his mouth. But it's a prank. Later, the killer uses this idea in a more dangerous manner and with more dangerous ingredients when he forces Parker, Michael Rosenbaum, to consume cleaning chemicals. You've got the spider in the egg. It's mentioned in the movie. Slasher under the car. That's mentioned. There's somebody gets their Achilles tendon slashed under the car. The legend is most often set in a shopping mall. It's typically a woman's walking and a male is hiding underneath the car. The babysitter, the man upstairs, we've talked about that. The old lady dries the dog in the microwave. That's a rather gross one. So there's several different urban legends that are used in the movie Urban Legend. And least favorite scene, I don't think I really have a least favorite scene. I would say, honestly, Rebecca Gayheart as the killer is my least favorite scene. The ending, in my opinion, of a lot of these type films do not live up to the build-up of them. And I'm not saying it's a fault of this film, because it's not just this film. Scream 2 does this. And Scream 2 has a great build-up throughout the entire movie. This has a pretty... Urban Legend is not on the caliber as Scream or even Scream 2. Urban Legend would be on the more level of probably Scream 3 or maybe even Scream 4 if you're comparing, those kind of genre. And because you can't really compare this Urban Legend and, a Jason movie or Freddy kind of a movie. You can't really do that because it's not the same type of killer. Their goal isn't the same. This character's goal as the murderer, as the killer, has specific things in mind. Now, she does go out of her way and kills a couple of other different people. I don't really know why, but she does. But maybe we're not supposed to know why. Maybe it's better. I think sometimes it's better when the killer doesn't have a motive. Or if the motive's kind of poetic, like Kevin Spacey's performance as John Doe in 7. There's solid reasoning in the reason that John Doe does what he does. Back to Urban Legend. The score and the music, it's fitting. We'll play a little bit, but it's fitting for this type of genre. So yeah, we've been playing it a little bit throughout the show, and it's fine. I sometimes when I listen to score, I try to think back, would I honestly know what this is from? Now I would, but I don't know if I would have before, to be honest with you. But yeah. It's a sufficient score. Originality, it's a slasher flick based upon urban legends. It's not that original. You know what you're getting going in. I would hope that you do. You can watch the trailer, which is now considered a classic trailer, and understand exactly what the film and movie is going to be about. There's no hiddenness about it. You know what I mean? And the poster, I always did like the poster. It's got the characters in like a broken mirror, and there's 6 main characters, and then you've got an eye in the middle. So you don't know what the killer is going to look like, but you know the victims or the people involved right away. That's kind of how I look at the whole thing. You know what I mean? That is really how I look at it. So do I recommend or do I not recommend Urban Legend? Yeah, sure. It's about 95 minutes. And it's got a, I don't want to say, I would say the dog in the microwave, and probably the chemicals down the throat's the most memorable kills. And I would say there's a couple good little monologues in there, good performances, and no one really truly broke out from the cast. I mean, no one's a failure by any means, and Robert Englund has, I mean, he was the only established someone that's been in the business 25 years at that point, 20 years at least, 15, 20. So he was an icon among the horror community, and a good actor as well. I think he could have been a regular, legit, non-horror movie actor, and he has in a few things. But no one really broke out from this. I mean, Joshua Jackson did a couple shows. Some of the others did, and they're known faces. But, this goes back early on in all of their careers. Even if you think back 26 years to Robert Englund. I mean, he's just turned, 74? So, I mean, he was in his late 40s in this. Something like that. So, yeah, give it a shot. It's on Max. If you have HBO Max, give it a watch. And if not, then don't. Very simple. Very simple. But thank you for tuning in to Real Talk on 92.5 WLSD The Vault, 1220 AM, and WLSDradio.com. Please go to all of our social media pages. That's the Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, and Instagram, The Other People's Show. And stay tuned for a brand new episode of The Other People's Show in just a moment.